So I want to use this opportunity to, honestly, this platform to flesh out some of the ideas that I've written about on my Substack. I know Substack is a new format. I feel like it's one of those like liberal elite formats uh, that only a certain group of people use, and blah 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 whatever. It's an easy way for me to write and publish. I don't have any extra resources. I don't have any fun avenues of releasing things that I wrote. I used to write on Facebook all the time, and Facebook isn't necessarily the place that I want to present my ideas. I'm happy to talk on Facebook, but that's more of a confrontational area, and it's an unsolicited way for people to hear your information. I'm not trying to just throw this sort of information at people who don't care to engage with it. Uh, One day people won't be able to ignore me, won't be able to ignore my opinions, but I'm not going to force them to engage in that, especially if we're uh, longtime acquaintances who've never spoken. Uh, they're welcome to block me if they want to. So I am using this video series. This is going to be part one, talking about my big Substack piece. America, maybe it's time to renew our vows. I think my focus is I want to restore democracy to what it was intended to be. I think Trump has taken us kind of far away from the path. I don't think it's the first time. Honestly, I don't think it's anywhere close to as bad as it has been in America's history. But I think there's an ideal that was written about in the founding. I think the preamble is kind of the important part, and so I wrote this piece that I'm going to read and talk about here to kind of lay out my path. I think of how we stop Trump and prevent the next Trump from happening. There were Trumps before Trump. There are going to be people who try to be Trump after. But I think we, the people, have to make sure that we can see not only when someone isn't being honest and someone is purely out for self gain, and B, how do we make sure our checks and balances aren't just, check like rubber stamps for whoever's in power. It doesn't matter if the person in power agrees with my political beliefs or not. It's very important that we have some system that when we the people speak, if we speak wrong, there's mechanisms that we also control, whether directly or indirectly, that put limits on that person. Ultimately, because no one person should have any say over anybody's life in this country. If there's going to be laws or rules that are changed, it needs to be a majority of our government that is actually condoning and passing these laws where necessary. All right, so without further delay, let's get into this thing. So I'm going to read this verbatim and then have a quick talk, and we'll go from there. Introduction. If you're reading this essay, you either got in early or you're catching up on some anomaly. As some anomaly happened, and somehow my pet project got some wind in its sails. Inspiration comes from many places. A great woman I saw as a motherly figure used to tell me that she lived many lives. When she passed away in 2025, it didn't make sense to me. As the year continued, I felt a renewed passion in my soul, a desire to make the world better for my two boys. You'll hear me say that a lot, but what it truly means is a better world for all children. I'm at a moment in my life where I feel like I must use my past lives to create a new one. I think I finally understand what she meant. I'm a descendant of both slaves and slave owners. I'm the father of the boys whose heritage stretches back centuries into various continents, countries, clans, and tribes that have long been forgotten as cultures have evolved. This country belonged to them. This country belongs to all Americans, both past, present, and God willing future. We may be past an inflection point in 2026. I don't know what will come next. My hope is that we don't look back and say we were too late. If we were, I pray these essays find an audience that is inspired to write whatever directions this ship is headed. If I'm wrong, then hopefully this is a fun read by some alarmist who's panicked at the time when most Americans pretended things felt okay. Or maybe it's in a museum somewhere like the DuSable Museum in Chicago, an exhibit that talks about a rebirth in the American dream. I write I wrote a series of essays about what I believe we should do next. I titled the series America, Maybe It's Time to Renew Our Vows. I intended this to be a book, and maybe one day it will be. Until my time and my free time and budget can support that, I hope you accept these essays. Now video. I'm a black man in this country, if you can't tell. Uh, I understand and know its history. I don't intend to whitewash the cruelty done to my ancestors by my ancestors. I believe the beginning of this country's story is the best place to start talking about where we are going. This essay series is intended to be more of a philosophical thought experiment. It's not a guidebook. Maybe this inspires you to guide us in the right direction. That's one of my key things. I'm not giving you the exact tool book to say this is gonna work and this is gonna prevent what comes next or stopping the next Trump. I think we need to be open and honest and actually start thinking about what comes after. And it doesn't matter if that what comes after is Republican or Democrat or third party. Whatever comes next, we need to make sure that it doesn't have the impact on the American people the way that Donald Trump and MAGA did. You may wonder what qualifies me to write this. To be honest, nothing does. I'm a Midwestern, formerly Southern, but is complicated, 33-year-old American dad who has lived in 6 states. My wife is probably my favorite person after my 2 boys. I graduated from Wofford College in what feels like a lifetime ago. There, I majored in philosophy and minored in government with a focus on Middle Eastern politics. The kid who graduated wanted to change the world and join the FBI or US Marshals, but life had other plans. The reason that I'm writing this is that I don't think it's too late to change the country. I have a voice. Thanks to social media and Substack, now YouTube, I may be able to amplify that voice. I'm not important. What is important is healing this country. I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment, but I think that amendment is the last option. Frederick Douglass famously said, "A man's rights rest in 3 boxes: the ballot box, the jury box, and the cartridge box." I believe he put that cartridge box last for a reason. The path I am on is part of the first box, the ballot box. This essay series is a direct response to the idea that America needs a divorce, a belief that both major political parties have separated us so much that we cannot reconcile our differences. While I personally believe one party is better than the other, I'm not trying to convince you to identify as one or the other. To bring our country back on the path I believe it was intended to follow, I'm trying to convince you that this country is worth fighting for in whatever way you see fit. My path is words. Yours may involve action. It doesn't matter what you do, it only matters that you do something. So, the first section, that introduction, I'm laying out why me, why now, and kind of what the purpose is. I think the most frustrating thing that I come across and that I see is people saying, hey, this country's going to hell. And when you're a child, you can say that. You don't know the world, you don't know how anything works. And it's just, I can't change it, so let me complain. You got to make mistakes. You've got to experience sadness, experience happiness, experience joy to understand that your world around you is created by you. Your actions, your decisions, the steps that you take, you know, things may not always be in your control, but how you react to the things that are in your control shape the world around you. And every single day that you're breathing is an opportunity to build on that. So, complete tangent. Apologies. You will get a lot of those as you get these YouTube videos. So, my hope is that you will read this essay or hear this video and you won't take it as a, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I hope that this inspires you to think about how in the world are we going to make sure that the way I feel right now doesn't happen to anyone after me? That regardless of my political views the ways that I feel, the ways that I don't. I am going to show you that Donald Trump is not a typical Republican. The Republican Party that I grew up with, that members of my family identify with, is not what the Republican Party is today. Uh, as things go, I will talk about the Democratic shift, um, the Southern strategy. Political parties change. Life changes. Nothing's stagnant. And so, relying on people to, when they hear the word Republican and think of Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, or even George W. Bush, that is not what MAGA and Republican is today. There are people who still identify with that as Republican but non-MAGA. And while I have beef with them not saving their party, I don't think it's fair to them in a two-party system to say, you're wrong, I'm throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I think those people have certain principles and values, and the current Democratic Party as it stands doesn't necessarily, it is not the small d Democrat party that it needs to be. It is I'm going to save it. I have beef with the Democratic Party. The National Party as a whole, the Coastal Party, ugh. Guys, chill out. It might work in New York, it might work in California, it might work in Chicago, but I promise you, Democrats of the cities do not match Democrats of the rest of the country. And we have to stop talking as a party about definitives. You can't do this, you can't do that. We don't have that luxury anymore of 2008, 2012, of being able to slice off our base. We as a party have to be the adults in the room, almost the way it's been my entire lifetime, to save this country from the other political party. We can't have that socialist versus, I don't even know what the far, far left considers moderate Democrats these days. We can't have that debate when the conversation is, he said something I don't like. I personally don't care. You can say things I don't like. What are you doing? Are you actively harming someone? Are you actively misusing our funds? Are you actively contributing to the pain and suffering that's happening in our country? I think MAGA, I think Trump are emboldened to do all those things to this country. And we're on the other side arguing, somebody said some words that hurt my feelings. And I'm talking about Jake Tapper, who always seems to have smoke for people who are left of him. But his criticisms of Donald Trump seem to be written, you know, everybody says the stuff he says about Donald Trump, but nobody's saying the stuff that he says about Hassan Piker. Like, dude, move on. I get it. The guy said some terrible things. That's his opinion. We need to appeal to his base, but we don't necessarily need to keep his base away from the party. That's absolutely insane. I think that sort of stuff feels like you're enabling the MAGA to continue, and you're giving them a lifeline to say, hey, or not Republicans that are non-MAGA, they have a lifeline to say, I will never be a Democrat, ever. I'll never vote for them because look who they accept in their party. Hassan Piker is one man. His base doesn't agree with every single thing he says. He says things in a way that people resonate with, and he says things that people aren't willing to necessarily say, but that doesn't mean that the entire Democratic Party feels that way or that the entire Democratic Party is embracing that. I again beef with the coastal Democrats. I'm stopping. I'm stopping. If you guys see me smile, say look away. I'm trying to filter this through the HR department in my head. I want this essay series, this video series, to unite Americans. I don't think that my beef with the Democratic Party, my absolute hatred for MAGA, and beef with the Republican Party should impact anybody in their choices of which party is necessarily right. I'm trying to present you the information and give you a path on how we move forward as a country full of Americans who genuinely actually love freedom and not just that buzzword to force others into following their beliefs. So I'm going to wrap this essay up, this first introduction. I hope you enjoyed episode 1 of America. Maybe it's time to renew our vows. See you next time.